and welcome to another episode of Design Tips and Sips. I'm Anna Gibson with AKG Design Studio. I'm the owner and chief designer of AKG Design Studio based in Reston, Virginia, and we service the whole world, not just Reston. So we specialize in interior remodeling, kitchen, bathrooms, and pretty much anything in between. So today we're going to break down the design element and what goes into a kosher kitchen. So shalom and welcome to another episode of Design Tips and Sips. And my sip is missing today, so that's the blooper for today. If I was sipping on something, it would have been a limonana. So we will put the notes for this awesome, refreshing drink in the notes. Limonana, it's widely enjoyable drink in Israel. It is based with lemon and mint, and it's pretty much a slushy. It's a beautiful summer slushy. You can drinking just as a lemonade, but it's really good as a slushy. So really just a lot of mint, lemon, sugar, and a lot of ice and make a slushy out of it. And if you want to party, you can always add a little bit of vodka or arak, which is anise-based Mediterranean drink. So I'm not drinking it, but we'll send you some pictures and check the notes of the show to see the drinks. So, all right, so let's jump into kosher kitchens. So whether you're about to remodel your kitchen or you're an architect or another designer that was requested to create a kosher kitchen, it might sound something that is a very niche, but it's still very important for a major part of the Jewish community around the world. And it is very different than what you think about. So let's dive into what is kosher kitchen are, and we're going to break it down to the principle of Kashrut, the design principles of how to make it happen in your kitchen, and then some extra tips of how to make it even more special in your space. So the first thing is to understand is the core principle of the kashrut in the kitchens. So before we get to the cabinets, and there's a big why. And the why is because in the Torah, it says that we're not allowed to mix milk and milk or anything that derive from dairy products with meat. And we're not going to argue about the validity. This is what it is. And most of religious Jewish people follow that. And by mixing it, not means just only in a plate, but it's completely needs to be separated. Everything separated. Even when you're eating meals, you actually have to observe, depends on how observant you are. You need to observe between 3 to 6 hours of actually eating between if you had a dairy meal to a meat. So even your stomach had enough time to actually digest everything before you mix it up. So, so it's absolutely two separate food groups that need to be separated completely, which means that you have to have separate preparation areas in your kitchen, separate dishes. So you need to have 2 sets of pots and pans, one for meat, one for dairy. You have 2 sets of plates and bowls. Really anything that you're using for your serving needs to be separate. 2 sets of silverware and pretty much even Tupperware. So anything that touches food that is in your house really absolutely need to be separate, almost like 2 food groups that cannot touch each other and cannot be mixed with each other. And there is a third group, which is called parve, which is the parve is kind of like the in-between things, right? The things that are like, they're not dairy. So your margarine that is based on a plant-based, anything that is plant-based that does not have any dairy or meat mixed in it. So fruit, vegetables, margarine, and really just anything that is not one of those 2 groups. And those group can be mixed with the other 2 groups. So obviously you can use veggie with dairy or with meat, and those are the ones that can be intermixed as far as food. But again, you want to keep it all all really is separate. So we're not going to put meat and dairy on the same plate. We're going to keep everything separate. So that creates a very interesting design challenge, whether you have a big kitchen or a small kitchen, of how do you keep it separated, how you keep it organized. And there's also additional design principles that we need to apply in order to keep it all separate and kosher. All right, so now let's jump into the design principles. So I will show you also around my kitchen as well. So even though technically my kitchen is not kosher, but it can definitely count as kosher kitchen because I do have everything that is the making of a kosher kitchen. And then if somebody is looking for a kosher kitchen that's going to move into my house, they just need to do a really deep cleaning, and then they can actually use it as a kosher kitchen. So let's start. Sinks. You need to have 2 sinks. The gold standards is 2 separate sinks where you have one sink far away from each other. So one sink is designated as a meat sink, and the other one is designated as a dairy sink. And they can be in different location or in different areas, but really you just need to know that one is set up for meat and one set up for dairy. Once you start living in the space, the family kind of knows that this is one that you use for dairy, one you use for fish. A lot of times we can actually do the sinks in 2 different colors. So let's say we'll do a black sink for the meat and then do a white sink for the dairy. So then everybody knows which one is which. And then you don't end up with a lot of labeling, which we'll talk about labeling a little bit later in the episode. And of course, every sink needs to have its own drying dish for their specific set of dishes. If you have a really small house and you cannot have 2 separate sinks, which happens in smaller condos, smaller areas, you don't always have the luxury. As long as you have the double sink that has a really deep separation between the both sides, just decide which side is going to be the meat, which side is going to be the dairy, and then just keep using them as is. And most of the time, you're not going to be cooking dairy and meat at the same time. So then you know that you finish washing the dishes, you clean the sink, you dry all the dishes, and then you can move on a few hours later for the next meal and use that if the other side of the sink. So then again, there's no, let's say that I would call it cross-contamination between the meat and the dairy. Dishwashers. So that's a big discussion of whether to use 2 dishwashers. A lot of time 2 dishwasher is a luxury because you have to buy 2 dishwashers. They're not always cheap. Also, it's luxury in space because a lot of times you don't have room for 2 dishwashers. So that kind of creates the problem in the dishwasher. So what I did in my house is we're actually using the Fisher-Paykel drawers. So I actually have 2 drawers. They are set in the same 24 inches space of your regular dishwasher, but they work separately. They have their own drains separately. So I can run one as meat, one as dairy, and they're absolutely separate, and there's no cross-contamination because they all work separately, but they fit in the same space. The other option, again, if you don't have the opportunity to replace the dishwasher or you have a very small dishwasher, as long as you run a full cycle of just meat and then wait to the next cycle that is dairy and run them separately and not in the same time. So I guess it becomes a little bit inconvenient to make sure that you only put meat in there. And if you do have people that come and go from your house or not aware, it really becomes a little bit cumbersome to make sure that you remember that right now it's a meat cycle versus a dairy. So I really recommend looking at the Fisher-Paykel drawers because you can really just load it up. It fits easily, at least 4 to 6 people set with additional dishes, Tupperware. And so you can have even probably a day or two, depends on the size of your family. You can have 2 days worth of dishes on in one cycle on each drawer. So I really, really recommend looking at that option if you cannot go for the full 2 dishwashers. And of course, if you do have the space and if you have a large family, going for the 2 dishwashers is really helpful. And countertops. So we definitely want to have separate countertops where you do the meat and dairy. So in my house or other houses that we design, you usually have an island and then you have additional prepsing probably closer to the stove. So one area like the island where I do most of my cooking will be designated as the meat area. And then the other side where the stove is that usually need less space anyway, will be the dairy. So I'm going to be doing most of my baking there. Anything that had to do with creating fish, breakfast stuff is going to be on the other side of my countertop on the main area. Now, again, small spaces can be pretty difficult. You might not have an island. Your island might be a little bit too small for that. A lot of times it's really just designated the left and right of your stove. So your right side is going to be your dairy, your left side is going to be your meat, and then your stove separates the 2 sides from each other. So then, again, you don't have to worry about that. And we'll talk about visual cues about how to make that happen. Another thing is the stovetop and the oven. So those usually people that keep standard kosher, they, because there's a heat in there, like I guess the halacha says that the heat actually burns everything that was in there. So you can definitely use the same oven for dairy and for meat. In my house, because I actually have 2 ovens, and the way I worked about it, I have my main oven where we do the meat, and that's the one that's sitting under the cooktop. But I also have the Sharp microwave oven, and then that actually has oven and air fry in there. So I can do baking, I can do air frying, I can do my microwaving, everything in my microwave, and that is dairy only. And then the big stove where we do the turkey, and it also have air fryer, so I can also do all the meat stuff that is involved. So we actually have 2 separate. But again, you don't have to have, as long as you clean and wipe everything on your cooktop and your ovens, then that is considered kosher. So we're good to go. Okay, refrigeration. Now let's jump to refrigeration and storage. Most of the people, again, unless you have a humongous kitchen or big enough kitchen, then in that case, we can actually use the built-in refrigeration column. So we'll do 1 column refrigerator is going to be for the dairy, 1 is going to be for the meat. Of course, the parve that we talked about before, which is the catch-all, the veggies, they can go in either way. In either of the drawers or even the refrigerator, we go, and then we'll do another one for the freezer. If you really, 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 really super kosher, then we probably will do 2 freezers as well. But most people are okay with just freezer because, again, kind of like the stove, everything is frozen. It's not really touching each other. And you can also designate different shelves inside your freezer to dairy, meat, and parve separately so they're not touching each other. Now, like most other people, you might not have a room to create this big refrigeration system. So you can use 1 refrigerator where you designate every drawer or shelf to be dairy or meat. And again, you can put a little labels in there. And this way you know that you're keeping only meat on one shelf, only dairy on another shelf. The vegetables only go to the vegetable drawer anyway. And then maybe get a fridge that has 2 deli drawers, and then 1 really going to be for your turkey meat or all your deli cuts. And then the other one is going to be just for dairy. So your cheese sticks, shredded cheese, and stuff like that. So you can definitely get away with 1 refrigerator. We have 1 refrigerator, but we also have a beverage center We use the beverage sensor to store a lot of the dairy beverages in there, so that also helps the overload of the refrigerator. The other option that is popular right now, which is exactly the same size as your regular beverage center, is to use the drawers. So there's several companies out there, wherever it's that SKS and other companies out there that actually, just like the dishwasher, have drawers, and those drawers are convertible, so they can be frozen or they can be used for fresh produce and refrigerators. So if you don't use a lot of dairy, or if you want to keep your vegetable and other stuff separately, you can actually use the under-counter refrigerator drawer style, and especially if you're hosting. So again, it's really, really easy and simple way to change things around your kitchen, because it just takes a space of a 24-inch cabinet. So if you have space in the kitchen, we can just move. If you already have that, we can just remove one 24-inch cabinet, just add some outlet, and then you have a separate storage space additional to your refrigerator. So the other thing that we have to think is storage in general. So what we have in my kitchen, and which is one thing that I absolutely love anyway, is the dual drawer tier in the drawer. So again, we're not keeping kosher, we're not super strict, so they are in the same drawer, but they are in a separate tray within the drawer. So I'll take a look at that, and you'll see that I have one set of silverware on the top and the other set of silverware on the bottom. There are also two different colors, which brings me to color coding, and we'll talk about color coding in just a minute. So we have the silver one for the dairy, and we have the gold one for the meat. So this way we know, and we don't need to mix it up, but they both fit into one drawer, which makes it really, really easy. Again, if you have the space and we can do two separate drawers in your kitchen, that's of course even better. But if we can, that is a really good, simple way. And again, this is also something that is easy retrofit. So if you are moving into a new house for you, you're not ready to remodel, but you need to retrofit the kitchen to be kosher, that is definitely something that you can order aftermarket and have it simply installed in your house. But if you are remodeling, and we're thinking, definitely think about your storage. So again, in my house, I have two cabinets, one on each side of the stove. One of them has all my dairy, another one has all my meat, and they're on each side, so it's very easy to remember what goes where. And same thing is going to go when you have a pantry. So a lot of people have, now it gets even more complicated, so stay with me, guys. So I'm kind of jumping around here, but so we have kosher, we have dairy, we have meat, we have parve, and now guess what? We have Passover. So kosher Passover, it's a total different animal. So because everything that we just talked about needs to be a whole different set of dishes just for the days of Passover. So a lot of people, we do need to build them a whole different storage. A lot of times I like to use the big cabinet above the refrigerator because there's a lot of storage there. You can put all the extra sets of dishes that you need for Passover over there, if they can fit into your kitchen. So that's a whole different story. Maybe we'll do another episode or something quick about that later. But, just find wherever it is that is maybe the top of your pantry or top of your refrigerator where you do have a really nice big storage. You can shove those things in there and then use them for Passover. But even the pantry, so we can separate the pantries between the different shelving, or really instead of, if you have let's say a 36-inch space, we can do two 18s. So then again, one is going to be completely dairy, one is going to be completely meat, and then you can intermix all the stuff that is parve that is in between. So Some people are definitely creating zones for parve as well. So again, parve is just the things that are in between, creating a zone for that. I don't think necessarily you need to create that, because most of the time the parve, which is your vegetables, is the stuff that you intermix with your veggies and the mix. So I don't necessarily need to think that you have a zone for that. But again, if you're really, really strict, we can definitely look at another zone that is just parve, that is kind of like just in between that. Also for the dining table, make sure that you have separate sets of salt and pepper and stuff like that that you're using. Again, you can get really, really deep on how much you are separating everything. And that's really a conversation that we can have while we're designing your kosher kitchen, a conversation that you need to have with your client, or how deep you're going into the kosher kitchen when you get into that. And okay, so now let's talk about some extra little details that we can add to make all this make sense and help you keep track of all that. All right, so as we talked about, so this is really, we're now getting into the nitty-gritty. So the other thing that I totally forgot when we're designing, again, thinking about cabinets, we talked about separating the silverware. I love having drawers. So for my pots and pans, I have a set of really two deep drawers. So one drawer has the pots and pans that I use for the dairy, and another drawer is only for the meat. So again, that's a good way to separate them. They're absolutely completely separated in their own box. So it's not even the rollouts. You can do it with rollouts as well, but I think with two big drawers, it just keeps things a little bit more organized and easy to keep track on. So you heard me talking about color coding. So a lot of people love to put a little labels, and I honestly don't like labels. It just, your kitchen starts to look a little bit like a cafeteria, because now you have labels everywhere. And I know that sometimes it's necessary, especially if you have a lot of people coming and going from your house. So if you are using a label, at least try to put them inside the cabinet somewhere that is not completely visible, because I have seen people that put the label on the outside, and honestly, I just find it not aesthetically pleasing. So if you are absolutely have to use labels, use them somewhere discreetly that is inside the cabinet where you can see it when you open the cabinet, but not necessarily when you are using it. So, but like I told you, color coding is an amazing, easy way to do it. So just like we're doing it with the silverware, that we have two different colors for our silverware, you can actually do it with your dishes as well. So for example, all our dairy dishes are white, and then we use all the black dishes for our meat. So this way we know everything that we're using for dairy will be in the white dishes, and the other dishes are going to be in black, whatever color you choose. And the good thing is right now, those dishes are not that expensive, and you can find sets in all the colors in the world that you love. And the thing also goes to pots and pans. Heck, I just went shopping with my daughter for her new dorm, and we found pink pots and pans. So, like if you like pink and blue, just buy that. But you'll know that the pink is going to be your dairy, your blue is going to be the meat, however you're going to mix it up. But creating color coding in the kitchen, I think this is a key to keeping very clean, aesthetic, kosher kitchen without going crazy with labels. And this way, everybody already have visual cues of which things goes where. So, think outside the box. If you are living in a very, very small apartment and you don't have that much room, even using a separate shelf inside the same cabinet, that's perfectly fine, because they're still separate. Having the color coding give you the visual key, so that really is going to help you with that navigation of your dishes. And as I said, even if you keep left and right of the stove, or again, just those visual cues for you, what goes where, it's going to help you create that kosher and aesthetics in your kitchen, no matter size of the kitchen that you have. So the core principle is always separation, and just find whatever works in your space. And we're here to help you wrap your head around it and even retrofit your kitchen. Because again, most of us are moving homes. We might not be moving to a house that was kosher before, and now we have to retrofit those kitchens. So look at those ideas. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to give you ideas of how to retrofit your kitchen if you're not in a position to remodel your kitchen completely. But if you do want to remodel, definitely reach out. We can help you get it done as well. So this is it for Kosher Kitchens. We will also have everything ready for you in the blog and the show notes, so you can follow and make sure you have all these great tips about how to design your next kosher kitchen. And that's it for today. So thank you again for joining us for another episode of Design Tips and Sips. I'm Anna Gibson with AKG Design Studio. If you enjoyed the show, please, please, please subscribe. Hit the bell to make sure that you know when is the next episode is dropping. If there is a topic that you want me to talk about, put it in the notes. If you have more questions about kosher kitchen or anything design related, put it in the comments. If you want to be on the show and you have something to offer to our audience that is anything design, wellness, and health related, please reach out at info@AKG Design Studio. And yeah, we're everywhere. So make sure we are the AKG Design Studio on Instagram. And hopefully I didn't forget anything. If I forgot, it's in the design notes. And until next time, have a colorful day.